What up, everyone? It's April 14, 2025. I'm in Philadelphia, which is very odd. If you watch to the end of the video, you might find out why. But what is up? My name is Jack Landry. I'm 29 years old. Was born in Massachusetts, Falmouth, Massachusetts. Now live in Miami. For some reason, I'm here in Philly. And it's crazy. I've been doing this online coaching for almost 2 years now. I started in the summer of 23 officially. And here I am basically 2 years later. Skills speaking on camera have gotten a little bit better, but we still have a long way to go. But it's been a beautiful journey. And really what I want to do is reintroduce myself. I want to talk about the reason I'm even doing what I do, and I really want to just let people know who I am, the background I come from, what got me here in the first place, what I'm passionate about, and everything behind my story. So what I'm about to do in the next however many minutes it takes is go super deep on my purpose, but more so, I want you to hear my story so you know who is the person, who is this Jack Landry. So first and foremost, super high level, the main purpose of my page, of my mission, is to elevate men towards their physical, mental, and God-given potential. And I've learned from experience that you can only be in your purpose that God has for you. You can only be living in fulfillment if you're fully aligned, physically, spiritually, and mentally. And actually the order of it is physically, mentally, and spiritually, because without a healthy body, you cannot have a healthy, quiet, focused mind. Without that quiet, focused mind, you can't be in a place where you can fully connect, where you can literally get downloads and guidance from God and His Spirit. You're not going to be able to hear His Spirit directing you within you. So that's why I'm here. Because everything I used to do was so out of alignment. Everything I used to do was so far from God. And it was only when I left behind that old life and started doing things with a foundation of physical and mental health, with a foundation of God starting every single day, did I fully step into my potential, did I fully find myself in a place where I was truly in my purpose and in fulfillment every single day. So I'm 29 now. My story starts in 2018. I went to college in North Carolina in 2018. I was studying computer science. I was in the honors program at a small school in North Carolina called Elon University. I was actually attending the school before I even knew I would get a chance to go and play Division I football there. So my dream as a young kid was always to play in the NFL. And as I got towards the end of my high school career, I started to realize that that probably wasn't possible just based on my own God-given athletic abilities, but I knew I had the potential to play college Division I college ball, and I committed to Elon for academics. I was also there on an Air Force scholarship, Air Force ROTC. Basically what you do is you go through training with the Air Force. At the end of your time in college, you owe the Air Force 4 years, you go and work some type of job with them. So I had a nice scholarship for that. I had a nice scholarship for the honors program. But bro, I wanted to play college football so bad. And I kept hitting up every single coach on the team before I even got to Elon. And I finally got in touch with one coach. It was actually the tight ends coach. I ended up playing safety, which is on defense. And he was like, yeah, man, send me your film and we'll check it out. I sent him my film, and the next thing you know, he was basically like, because you were persistent, because you showed you're truly interested, you want to be part of this, come down for camp. So I came down for camp beginning of August, went through camp. I was the little white boy walk-on, and I was deathly afraid. I remember because we had to do the conditioning test. It was called 300s. So you had to run 25 yards and then 25 back. That's 50 So you had to do that 6 times. That equals 300 yards. And we had to do that 3 times with a small break in between each time. And I remember just all summer long, I was prepared. I was running on the field. There's a baseball field right here. I was running on the baseball field near my parents' house. I was puking, and I was so afraid that I wasn't going to pass. And I ended up being, the white boy walk-on ended up being the one who got the best time out of all the defensive backs, safeties, corners, so out of my position group. So it was a good start to camp, but at the end of camp, I actually ended up fracturing my back twice. I had 3 back fractures in high school as well. It's called lumbar spine fractures, so basically the vertebrae that come off your spine. I had 2 new ones, and I had to wear a full body back brace, like full torso rather. In high school, I had to wear it for about a year. In college, it ended up being about 2 years. So I missed the entire freshman season. I missed the entire sophomore season and went through sophomore fall, missed the season, went through sophomore winter, did training with the team, but still wasn't ready to get back on the field. And I remember my commander, that was his position with the Air Force, the guy who was in charge with the Air Force, was like, because you got hurt playing football, if you want to continue in the Air Force with us, we need you to give up football. You can't play football anymore if you want to continue with us. And the scholarship was $18,000 sophomore year, $18,000 junior year, and $18,000 senior year. So it was a hefty scholarship. And I remember this dude looked at me and he was like, what's the point of trying to get back on the field anyways? Like, how much time are you really going to get? You're basically not going to play. And I just remember, like, that just pissed me off so much, because who was this dude to tell me what I could or couldn't do? And I try not to cuss anymore. But I remember at the time, I was like, who the F are you to tell me what I can and can't do? And my dream had always been to play ball. And I was so blessed to have an incredible dad and mom. But my dad always from an early age was like, set your mind to it. You can achieve whatever you want. And because of my parents, that's why I was a straight A student my entire career. That's why I was in the honors program. That's why I graduated cum laude, 3.7 GPA plus. Not to brag, just to speak on my situation, what I came from. My parents were like, you can get A's if you try hard enough, so we're going to get A's in this house. And that was the only option. So I had that instilled from my father and my mother, and I knew my father supported me in pursuing my dreams, so I said, screw it, I don't want the scholarship. I didn't even really want to be part of the Air Force anyways. I dropped the scholarship, continued with my rehab, but I still wasn't on the field. And that winter going into the spring, my head coach, sorry excuse for a head coach, came up to me and pulled me in his office and tried to tell me, he said, you know, came that time in my career when I had to clean up the cleats and hang up the cleats rather, and you know, it might be that time for you too, son. Maybe you want to become a student assistant and help out. And I was like, the last thing I'm going to be doing is running around the field picking up cones. Like, I did come here to be part of the team, but I came here to contribute to the team, to actually play, to show out and come out on game day with the boys. So I said, with all due respect, I'm going to continue to go through the rehab process until I can at least get my feet back on the field, and we'll see how this body responds. Long story short, continue to go through rehab. Spring of sophomore year, I got on the field for spring ball. Junior and senior year, I started essentially every single game on special teams as a walk-on. And that was literally the beginning of my personal development journey, because it taught me It doesn't matter what anybody else says. If you have a clear vision and a clear desire and you truly know why you want to be there and you have a motivation, my motivation was, number one, there's nothing I love more than football, so I want to do this. Number two, I know I'm capable, so I'm going to keep pushing until literally my body tells me I can't do it. If you have a clear vision and motivation, then you can do whatever you want. And this taught me not to listen to the opinions of insignificant people, which is the majority of people. So fast track to senior year, football ended, and I was just smoking weed, getting high every single day. I wasn't in the gym. A part of me had been lost. I was big chilling. I had a job already lined up. I was taking like origami and like breakdancing class, which I'll put up a video. I broke it down pretty good in that class. But I was big chilling. I was in a relationship, long relationship. It'd been like 4 years, and I share about that relationship not out of disrespect for the woman it was at the time, but because there's some important parts of my story to that. And the relationship was trash at that point. I was terrible. Our relationship together was terrible. And that came to an end, and I just remember I was so friggin' depressed. Girl I thought I was gonna marry, started dating her senior year at college. I didn't even know what to do with myself, and I looked myself in the mirror one day after getting high every single night, watching Game of Thrones, and I was like, something has to change. So that was 2018, January of 2018. I think it might have been the 14th, 15th, or 16th. I took my first progress pictures, I'm gonna put them up, I ever took. Feeling so sorry for myself, and I was like, something has to change. And that was the beginning of my physical journey after football. I got back in the gym. I was just chubby, fluffy at that point. I started paying attention to what I was eating. I was bringing my food scale to the dining hall. I stopped smoking because it would cause me so much anxiety. I would go back to the smoking, and I got blessed to find a family in the local town who introduced me to their pastor. I ended up going to this pastor's church, and I grew up Catholic, so went to Catholic school my whole life, so I was always very well versed. I understood God and Jesus well, and I believed Jesus was the Son of God, but I had never had like a real experience with Jesus. And I said I believed, but if you looked at my life, bro, it didn't reflect it. I was getting blackout all the time, smoking weed. I was disloyal to my girl. It's a good reason she dumped me. I deserved it. And I wasn't living at all in alignment. I barely even prayed. I didn't pretty much pray, and it was at that time I went to this new church. It wasn't Catholic. All they did was they preached a word from the Bible that had a deep message behind it that was rooted in the truth of the word and that I could apply to my life. And for the first time, I just heard the word of God in a different light, and it just hit me, and it spoke so much truth to me in my situation. And that started my initial pursuit of God as an adult. And I ended up getting baptized in my friends, this good family in Elon, where I went to school. I ended up getting baptized in their swimming pool. So I graduate 2018, summer of 2018. I call it my shit show summer. I was working at a restaurant, blackout all summer. Last shift at the restaurant, I drove home to my parents' house, blackout, sideswiped a curb, blew out 2 tires, pulled up on the side of the road to check out what happened. I thought I only popped 1, but I popped 2. So I rode it on the rims low and slow about a mile, had a mile left. It was about midnight. I live in a small town way outside of the city. So it's quiet on the back roads. That's why I thought I was Mr. Confident, just whipping it drunk. Pulled up to the crib. My parents have their windows open. They can obviously smell the burnt rubber. So I walk in the house, I walk up the stairs, and my mom literally comes out of her room. She says, "What happened?" And she just embraced me in a huge hug and just starts bawling her eyes out. And I remember telling her, like, I think I was crying a little bit or brought to tears. I was like, "Mom, I need help." And I would like to say that that changed everything, but it didn't. Even though I realized how selfish I was being, because number one, I was putting the lives of other people at risk. But number two, I was putting my own life at risk. And it wasn't so much about my life, it was about the implications that losing my life would have on the people around me, the people who loved me. I just realized how selfish I was being. But that continued on through the summer. And I remember I moved to Boston when I got my first job in 2019. And me and my boys went out. I left my keys in the Uber. Once again, we were blackout. We were so blackout that I told my buddies, we'll break in the window because I had lost my keys. So we ended up breaking into the apartment through the window. Absolute disaster, glass everywhere. And once again, just in that same situation, that same cycle, I had a job with a company called Fidelity Investments, a good fintech company. At the time, I thought it was a good position to be in. I was being paid about $75,000, good 401k. You know, I was pretty happy with where I was at, but I quickly became discontent. But still, when I looked at my life, the only thing I was putting my time and energy into was basically work. And then partying on the weekends. I told myself my job was just to support the lifestyle I wanted, that finances wasn't my main priority. But when I looked at my life, I was screwing off. I was eating crappy on the weekends, smoking, drinking, destroying my body, destroying my progress. Wasn't doing anything good for myself. And it was at this time when I finally realized that I had to start making a change if I wanted to live in my potential. I got so sick and tired of myself because all I was doing was going through the motions of life. I wake up, I go to work, and then the weekends would be the same. And this is when I was starting to continue what I started at the end of senior year in the gym. I was focusing on my physique. I was tracking my macros. I was trying these different diet strategies. But then I would just screw it all up during the weekend. And I just got fed up with myself because I knew I was capable of more. And I had so much guilt and shame around the way I was showing up because I was letting myself down. So finally I started to make a switch. I started making small changes to my weekends, going out less, drinking less, smoking less, eating less crappy food. I was still in it. I was journaling some. I started finding out ways to advance my career. This is when I got enrolled in grad school. I went to Georgia Tech. I was doing a master's part-time in computer science, specialization in machine learning, which for most of you, machine learning is basically the underworkings of AI. Essentially, can we train a machine based on data to respond a certain way? So that was the hot thing at the time. I wanted to get into machine learning. So I was like, let me go get this degree because I only had software engineering experience. So I went and did that. And then I just started applying for other jobs because I was ready to break that 100K mark. Like that's where my head was. How can I get to 100K as fast as possible? So I applied to as many jobs as possible. I just started doing reps, interview after interview after interview. I did like 9 different interviews. And then one day I had a message come into my inbox on LinkedIn. It was for Amazon. And at the time, cloud technology was becoming huge. And I didn't really want to work for I didn't really want to do cloud work, mainly because I didn't know it. It was foreign, so I didn't want to have to learn something brand new. But what I did have an interest in was working for Amazon, because I was like, this is a big four tech company. If I can get them on my resume, like, that's it. I made it, dog. With this resume, I can do whatever I want. So when I tell you I grinded to prepare for every single interview I did with that company, I grinded. I remember I would be up in the crappy, crummy Boston weather. People were literally taking dumps on my doorstep. I lived a mile from a place called Methadone Mile, which was basically an area in Boston where they let controlled use of meth happen. So you literally had all these crackheads who would just wander down to where I lived in this little dumpy corner in South Boston, right on the Dorchester line. And dudes wouldn't even know where they were. I had to do diarrhea on my doorstep. I came home one day, there was a needle on my doorstep. I came home one day, there was a massive, like, horse-sized dump on the sidewalk. And I just remember I wake up 5 a.m., I'd go into the office 6 a.m., it'd be like under 30 degrees, this slushy, crappy rain, super windy, smacking you in the face. I'd be on the T, riding it in with all the guys who were going in early for their construction jobs. And I would go into the office early to work on my grad school because I was taking 2 classes at a time, and I was interviewing for these jobs. But I remember I was just fired up. I'd be in my button down and I remember I had these dress pants, they weren't even fitted. Like, they just were like old man fitted slacks. And I just hated wearing them every time to the office because I was like, this shit looks so dumb. This shit looks so dumb. But I would be in there on my little trench coat and I would be listening to Future, 6 a.m. on the T, on the subway. And I would be gassed up and I would go into the office, and this was the first time I ever heard a worship song, Reckless Love, and I would put it on. It was just like the presence of God that fell on me. When I would put that song on, I would be in the office, nobody was in there. It was like nothing I'd never experienced, and I didn't even realize what was going on at the time, but what I was doing is I was experiencing just the presence and the Spirit of God. And there was just this calm and this hunger about that time in my life. And I just loved it. And I would grind from 6 to 8 a.m. And then I would be juiced. I'd have made my coffee. And I'd go down to my desk juiced up. Everybody was coming in sluggish, rubbing their eyes. And I was sitting down already juiced up for the day. And then I would grind all day. And then I would go to this coffee shop in the city. Same thing. Walk through the crappy weather. Another Future song I would have on. Codeine Crazy, bars. The first one I would have in the morning was Ball Forever, some OG Future. Ball Forever in the morning, Codeine Crazy in the evening, after I was working on a project for Amazon. So I had to make a project for the interviews. The final interviews was 4 interviews, 4 rounds in one day. They flew me from Massachusetts to California to San Diego. So I was grinding. I was watching all these interviews about how to prepare for Amazon, writing down all the questions to expect, writing down my answers, rehearsing my answers. I'll put up a picture. My face was so drained. I was just gassed. I remember going out to San Diego, my first time to the West Coast. I had a big headache, migraine the whole trip. Barely slept, was focusing only on the interview and preparing for it. Came for the interview, absolutely crushed it. I got the job, the only person in the whole interview pod that day who got an offer. And I remember they called me up. I was in Boston. They gave me the offer. And I had put San Diego as my first location because I grew up on the beach. I loved being on the beach. I was like, let me try something new. They got surfing out here, bro. I didn't surf at the time. I just thought it would be so dope. And they were like, we don't have San Diego. I was like, all right, well, like, could you please check? And they called me back the next day. They said, we have 1 spot left in San Diego. We can make it happen for you. I was so fired up. And then I talked to my mom, and I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So my mom seen her baby go away. She didn't want to see that. And I had friends in Boston, my main homies from high school, and everything was easy. I had an apartment. Life was good. I had settled in. And there was a part of me that almost stayed in Boston because it was comfortable. But I knew I had to go to San Diego. So I literally shipped it out to San Diego January 1st of 2020. I moved in with a dude off Craigslist. I'd had a conversation or two with him, but besides that, I knew nothing about him. Just seemed like a cool dude from Ohio, which he was. Shout out Riley, good, solid dude. And I moved in there and I completely left my old life behind. Was making over 100K, was like 24, 23 years old. It's like, let's go. Amazon, baby, let's go. And then this was just when really everything started to go so deep for me. I just dove so heavy into my personal development because I had no distractions. It was just me, brand new environment. So I started reading books. I read 12 books in 2020, 24 in 2021. And the first book, or the most game-changing book I ever read, the first book I read was, it wasn't Atomic Habits, but I believe it was called The Power of Habits. And then the second book I read that just changed my life was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this is just when I truly got the first vision and guidance of, okay, get crystal clear on what you desire, and then map out all the ways you can get there. And then start taking action on it every single day and train your subconscious to focus on those things. And so I was just eating this stuff up. I was up at 5:30 in the morning. I was journaling. I was meditating. I was reading a devotional. I was praying. I would go into this mode called deep work monk mode, where I would literally have my phone off from the time I went to bed till like 11 a.m. How much I got done from the time I woke up to 11 a.m. between my morning routine and what I did at work, I was crushing, bro. I had done like over a day's work just by 12. Things were going good at Amazon. I was performing. I was going deep in my personal development, just eating it up, understanding like how to become more self and emotionally aware. I wasn't smoking anymore. I was starting to understand why I had anxiety around work. I was starting to see that like I was setting these expectations for myself that I needed to perform to a certain level, and that if I didn't perform to this hypothetical bar that I had set, that I wasn't doing enough. I had to do more. It just started understanding me and like why I was the way I was, why I acted the way I was, why I felt the way I was, what I was afraid of, what my insecurities were. And I just started creating this vision of a man that I truly wanted to be. And I had it on paper. And every day I would just wake up and figure out what did I need to do to move in the direction of that man. Started with waking up, spending time with God, getting my thoughts and emotions on paper, journaling, meditating so I can become aware. Eating good, in the gym. Advancing my career, okay, things were going good at Amazon. Come into 2021, it was time for a promotion. But I had to write my own promotion letter. I was like, this is stupid, yo. This is stupid. I gotta prove, my work should prove that I'm ready for a promotion, that I earned a promotion. I have to put in paper to double explain what I already done, right? It's not about the words you say, it's about the actions you do. I got the actions, but I have to put it in words for you guys. Like I have to go through this stupid formal process, and that just pissed me off. I was like, this is so dumb. I'm gonna go look for other jobs. So once again, still had that money focus. I looked for other jobs. And I was like, I'm going to go work for a hedge fund because I'm trying to make 300K plus a year. I don't care if I have to do 60 plus hours a week. So I got some jobs. They wanted me to come work for some hedge funds in New York. But I was like, no way. I at least learned at that point, San Diego, the great thing about it was it opened me up to a different lifestyle. It showed me East Coast was like grind. San Diego, everyone was like, what's up, yo? Like, everyone's so chill. Too chill, actually. But it was a good change for me because it made me realize like there's so much more to life than just the grind. So I started to appreciate life more for what it was in the small things, and also being intentional about truly setting aside time to enjoy life. So that's why I was like, I'm not going to New York. I had one opportunity to go up a little further north in Southern California. It didn't work out. I didn't get the job. Then I had a job come through to go self-employed. So basically what I would do is I would set up my own company, my consulting company, which I did, and then I would pay myself as an employee of that company, and my company would contract with clients, this one main client in general. And I had the opportunity I was going to make more than double what I was making at Amazon. Also, because I was going to start my own business, I had the opportunity to go and move to Florida, pay 0 state taxes, stack it up, write off a bunch of expenses. The whole idea, I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So when I read Think and Grow Rich, I was writing down how could I start my own business and what would that look like? And for me at the time, it was something in the intersection of finance and technology, something in the intersection of machine learning, making a model to help private equity firms or VC firms, some type of investment platform, some type of money management platform, because that was the skills I had. And I loved the building side of things with software engineering, like architecting. Okay, this is the product, this is the solution we want to build, the service. Let me design that. But the part I hated was the hands-on coding. I just like being a designer, being a visionary. Let's put all the pieces together. So that's why I had such a desire for entrepreneurship. And when I read Think and Grow Rich, I was like, okay, this is the monetary goal I want to have. These are some ideas of how I could get there. And part of that path is an entrepreneur. So when I got this option to go self-employed, start my own business, start doing this one big contract, and then also have the ability to bring on other contracts, I was like, this seems dope. This is going to help me create more of the time and financial freedom that I truly desire. That was my goal. I hated going into the office to work for somebody else. Just because a dude had a title above me, he had just been there longer. I remember sitting in one meetings and this one 50-year-old old man with gray hair would just mouth off to me at the biggest attitude. And I had to do everything in my power to not give this guy some lip back, because it wasn't my place, but nor was it a professional response. I always cared about how I presented myself, how I carried myself. That was important. To act like a child and talk crap back to somebody or lose your cool, that just shows lack of self-control. So I never did that. But if I was the boss, that shit wouldn't have been happening. So I just hated that. I hated being on the clock, having somebody else tell me how to spend my time. So I got this opportunity. But the thing was, all the people around me told me, don't do it. I had a bunch of recruiters in my network. They were like, if you go self-employed, it's going to be hard for you to get back into the corporate world. I had a bunch of people in San Diego who were like, why would you leave San Diego to go for Florida? Florida's guns and gators. Let's go. Land of the free, baby. I love Florida. They're like, why would you give up the sweet life out here? But I knew it was the lifestyle. I would always come back to the lifestyle. It was just a temporary sacrifice in terms of the lifestyle for a bigger vision. So in 2021, I took that job. By 25 and 22, I was making over $250,000 a year. And I moved to Florida in 21. I started my business. And I lived up in Jupiter. I moved in with literally a 65-year-old dude. Was a homie, but I moved in with a 65-year-old dude because I didn't know where in South Florida I wanted to live. I had an opportunity from month to month. Rent was affordable, and I wanted that flexibility, so I took that risk. And it ended up working out for me. But if I had told anybody I was doing that, they would have been like, what are you doing, bro? You have good people in San Diego, you got this great lifestyle, and you're moving in with this 65-year-old white dude in Jupiter, Florida? For what? But I just knew there was an opportunity. I knew there was something better on the side of sacrifice. I did that, And at the same time, like, I dated a girl for a short period of time, and kind of a pivotal time in my walk and relationship with God, where this girl told me, I feel like God's telling me for you to surrender your life fully to Him. And that just stuck with me, and I started becoming more and more hungry for God. And I remember the first time when I moved to Jupiter, actually, moved from San Diego to Florida, started a new job. I drove across the country, bro. I drove across the country with this girl. We weren't even dating, and after driving across the country, we were dating. And she left to go back to San Diego, and I was sitting there in this 65-year-old dude's condo in my bedroom, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I know nobody here. I got this new girlfriend. And I cried out to God. I just, for the first time in my life, prayed this verbal prayer. It's like, God, help me. I need your help. I need your guidance. And I don't know what to do. Am I doing the right thing with all of this? And the next day, like the most radical experience I had ever had, where like my mom sent me this verse that the girl had sent me like a week before in a very similar situation. This coincidence, you would call it, happened that was so profound and so divinely orchestrated in accordance with my prayer that I knew it had to be God. And I remember journaling about it. My hand was literally shaking because I just felt the presence. The first time I ever felt the presence of God in my life. It was after I cried out in desperation. I was like, I need you. And the next day I prayed a verbal prayer for the first time since I could ever remember. And the same thing happened, a radical coincidence. And I knew this God, this Jesus of the Bible is real. So I started pursuing. I was super, super hungry. Anyways, life went on. I would spend 6 months in Florida. I would spend 6 months in San Diego, so life was good. I would spend my time, check the box, so my business could stay in Florida. Went back and forth for a couple years, 21, 22, 23. In 22, I was out in San Diego. I had this vision. And I wrote it down in my journal. I said 3/16/2022. I wrote 2 lines. I said, live the Bible. But above that, I wrote, big idea for a holistic health account. I presented them backwards. 3/16/2022, I wrote down, big idea for a holistic health brand or account. I'll put it. And then right underneath that, I wrote, live the Bible. Little did I know, I was literally speaking life into what my life was going to become. It was no coincidence that the first day I had that as well, that idea, I also wrote in accordance with it, live the Bible, and it was also on 3:16, which is basically the most well-known Bible verse known to anybody. 3:16, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but may have eternal life. And then my heart posture was in a place where I was going to follow God truly. I was going to try to live out his word. And then this idea dawned on me. And I didn't want to be Jack Landry Fitness. I didn't want to be an influencer. So my idea was to build a brand, a community of like-minded coaches who could reach everybody. So I was deciding to go out to Hawaii in May of 2022. I was going to be out there for a month working remotely. So I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew is I was trying to create the brand. The first brand name, it's now Moved, comes from the phrase move different, move.d. It ain't move.d, yo, it's Moved. Come on, read normal, like dang. So it says Moved, but originally at the time it had been Mind Over Body, pretty generic. I know, was calling it MOB, the mob, gang, but that's since faded out. Came across Moved, which is meant to be. So all I knew, I was going out to Hawaii. I had MOB. I was like, I need to record some content, boy. So this was the first time I'd ever recorded content. My good homie from home, the nicest dude I've ever worked with to this day, is a videographer. He flew out there for a week. I flew him out, paid for him to stay with me. We shot content all week. If you actually go on my YouTube page, the very first 2 videos on this page is something we created back in 2022. So we created content, and then I put together this team of like 5 trainers, and the rest of 22, I spent the year traveling around the country. One of them was in Boston, one of them was in North Carolina, another one was somewhere else, but Florida. We drove around, we flew around the country, we met with every single trainer, we did workouts, we did yoga workouts, we did nutrition stuff because I wanted it to be a holistic health brand. So I had a nutritionist, I had a yoga instructor, I had a dude who did mostly bodybuilding, I had a girl who did mostly CrossFit type of stuff, I had a guy who did athlete training. But the whole point was to go and get workouts and content with each of them, and then to hear each of their story. Some of the dopest people I've ever met in my life, some of my best friends still to this day. We went, we did interviews, we heard their story, we collected all this content. Then we came into 2023, and I was like, all right, we got all the content from the solo trips. I'm gonna bring the whole crew together. We're gonna meet for the first time. So somebody from Boston, Carolina, San Diego, they all came together. I wasn't even living in Miami at the time. Brought everybody into Miami, put everybody up in Airbnb, paid for flights, brought 2 videographers in. We did a whole weekend of content. I just remember at the end of that weekend, everybody left and I just like felt empty. And I was like, what am I doing, yo? I'm investing all this time and money and effort in skin in the game. I was the only one putting money into it, which was fine with me. I had the vision, I was the leader. I wanted to make it happen. I was happy and willing to sacrifice, but if people don't have a skin in the game, it's just not the same buy-in. And also, the biggest problem was I hadn't paved the way. I hadn't done it myself. I hadn't gotten people results, so I couldn't truly lead this team the way I needed to. And because it wasn't their baby, because they didn't have the vision, because they weren't fully invested, all of their time, their money, their savings. I knew I'm going this way. This is going to be it. They weren't in that same place. They were like, this is a great opportunity. I'd love to be part of it if it works out. So understandable, no shade being thrown. I was like, I put the cart before the horse. I need to take a step back. I need to do this myself. And it was at the same time I was going through the most transformational time in my walk with God ever. I was dating a sweet, sweet girl at the time, and the one thing that I was not willing to give up for God was my sex life. I wanted to keep having sex. I was like, all right, I can probably do all this, but I'm not sure about the whole sex thing. That might not be for me, waiting and stuff, so. Gosh, I was so deeply pursuing God, though. Like every morning, getting into worship. I didn't even know what worship was. It's like hands up and surrender. And I just felt so convicted to stop having sex. It was like God knocking on my soul, like, stop it. I need you to stop. And whenever we would have sex, like, I wasn't even there. And I'm not going to be like, yeah, I'm a dog, like, I'm a super high test guy, but like, I've always had strong physical desires. Just was physical in all my relationships. I still am. And I just couldn't enjoy it at all. And it got to a point where I had to have a conversation. I was like, listen, I can't keep doing this anymore. And because she didn't believe in God, and she didn't have the same desire to get to know God as me, it didn't make sense to her, which I understand and I can respect. And we had to step away because it was like we didn't want to pursue God the same way. And something I didn't want to do in our relationship, she felt was healthy for the relationship, which I also understand. So we just weren't aligned in that area. And out of mutual respect, we stepped away from it. But this was the most painful thing I ever experienced in my entire life. Because I so badly didn't want to leave. But I knew what God had for me was going to be better. And I knew if I kept doing it my way, I had no idea what I would deal with. I would have more adversity. I would have more turmoil. When I was going through that time, I was under so much distress, so much attack from the enemy. I would literally lay in bed and have like the most disturbing sexual dream next to my girlfriend with people who were super close to us, were in the dream. It was messed up. And it was just straight attack and attack. And I just knew if I continued on living it, doing it my way, I would never get to what God had in store for me. So the team fell apart, the relationship fell apart, and I was like, let's compete for a bodybuilding show, baby. My first goal was just to get as lean as I possibly could. I was like, I want to take my physique to the peak. I brought on a coach, wasn't even going to compete, but then our 6-month coaching period lined up perfectly with a competition. So I was like, I'm going to compete. I'm going to do it so I can gain more experience, more knowledge to help my clients. And going through that breakup, painful time in my walk with God, team falling apart, competing. I moved to Miami, Florida in the summer, June of 2023, full time, because I just felt a word like I had to settle down. The back and forth between San Diego and Florida, 6 months. I was in Airbnbs there, Airbnbs here, never had a permanent home. I was like, this needs to stop. I need to settle in. Honestly, was super skeptical. Didn't want to be in Miami because I was like, this is just a party town. People be blowing coke, and honestly, the only times I ever had been to Miami, that's exactly what I did. I went to strip clubs, I blew coke, I blacked out. I went to the strip club one night, 5 a.m., went for my boy's bachelor party. We went out to the club, out to the strip club. We came back to the crib, was drinking, doing coke in the bathroom, browning out, barely even remembering it. Came back to the crib, had flights the next day. I was so sorry. I went to the strip club alone at like 5 a.m. I have a video of me singing In the Air Tonight, Phil Collins. Just the same used to be. I've been waiting for the number in the air tonight. Blasted on the way to the strip club by myself. So that was the Miami I knew. So I wasn't too excited about going to Miami, but I knew Miami was the place to be because it was the biggest hub for business. It was the biggest hub for entrepreneurs. It was where the most opportunity was. So I was like, all right, I'm going to give it a try. I'm not a city guy. I like low key. That's why I like San Diego. Quiet, peaceful. Let me actually hear the birds outside. So that wasn't Miami. So I went to Miami, competed in the summer down in Houston. It was a great experience. Brought on my first 10 clients in May in the summer of 23. And was just kind of getting integrated into Miami. And then 24 rolled around. And I was like, all right, we need to crank up this social media thing. I was still working my full-time consulting gig, still running that business, had my main client. Went into 2024. I had invested in my first coaching program to help me build the brand, basically all the different aspects of it. In 2022, I came into 24 and I was like, boom, 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 boom. Mentor, mastermind, community. I was like, I can do this myself, or I can invest with people who have already done it to help me get to where I want to be with 10 times more speed. So I was investing, I was learning, I was posting content, posting. And at first I kind of tried to do this hardo, like, if you're fat, you need to get in shape. And then I tried doing this like personal development thing, or rather busy professional thing. I was like, if you're a 9 to 5 worker, like here's some tips for you to get your macros in at the office, and like here's some tips for you to do a quick 30-minute workout. I just went through 2024 and like got to the summertime, and I had, like I think it was like April, March, May, I had like back to back best months. I like doubled my income every single month in coaching, which was dope, but like it felt so misaligned, the message and everything about it. And I just sat with God, and the incredible thing about Miami was I didn't even know it when I moved there because I hated social media, and I honestly don't like social media for the majority of people because what it just is, it's just distraction and noise. So I didn't really like it. I would go off it for long periods of time. So I didn't even know what was going on in Miami. Like all the big online coaches were in Miami. I started seeing what they were doing. I was like, damn, this is why I'm supposed to be here. Because this is the spot. Everybody's doing it. So I got connected with so many dudes in person through their coaching programs. I was just learning and taking in all this information and trying this, trying that. And I felt like I got to a point where I was like, all right. I felt like God was like, you need to stop listening. And God had become such a pivotal part of my life. I found an incredible church there. I had literally stepped away. I had made a decision. I was not going to have sex till marriage. I was like, what? I gave up all my vices. I had an addiction to porn for 10 years. That ended way back in 2019. But that it broke off. The weed it broke off. The alcohol broke off. The sex it broke off. I was chasing God every single day. I felt like God was like, dude, if I'm truly first in your life, if I'm the thing that's transformed your life the most by building a relationship with me, that should be the center of your message. That's got to go out. Like God says, he should get all the glory. In all things you do, whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, let it be done for the glory of God. And I was like, damn, no chance this is going to happen the way I want it to if I'm not aligned with God. So basically, I shut down my old account that had like 1,200 followers. I had been pumping, meanwhile, I had been pumping from like summer of 23, put out some content, then January 2024, I started pumping. And then, yeah, I basically grew from like 700 to 1,200. And I just felt like it was so misaligned. So I felt like God was like, dude, shut out all the noise. Stop listening to everybody. You know what you're supposed to do. You know who you are. Your message is you. Your message is your authenticity, what you've been through. Speak that. So I shut that off. I shut off all the noise. I started a new account in August of 24, August 12th. I made my first post. I worked with one man. Oh my God, has become one of my best friends in my entire life. Just a powerful man of God. I know God's going to continue to work in our relationship. I listened to one mentor, and we blew that thing from 0 to 50K in under 100 days. It was at the same time one of my homies was going out to Thailand. I saw God work in our relationship, and I felt like God was like, you got to go to Thailand because I'm going to work out in Thailand. So I book a trip October 18. I book a trip. I'm going to Thailand for October and December, 2 months. Then it was still the summertime. I'm starting to prepare the new account. I'm getting ready. I'm getting my clarity. Shut down all the noise, all the opinions in Miami. And I just felt like I was supposed to get baptized again to fully recommit my life to Jesus because I had walked away from the sex. And I felt like for the first time in my entire life, I was in full surrender to God and Jesus. I didn't even know what that meant before. And I had gotten to a point, I had put my pride, my ego to the side, which is still something that has to die daily. But I was in that place. So in September, I think a couple days before my birthday, like the 15th or something, birthday is the 17th, I got baptized in the ocean in Miami. And yeah, it was about 60 days after that, the account hit 50K while I was in Thailand. It's just crazy, and I'm gonna see what I wrote down because I don't want to miss anything. But yeah, that brought us close to where we are, not quite where we are. So out in Thailand, everything was just flowing, bro. I was praying every single morning, up at 5 a.m., pumping content. I was in worship in the evening, which worship, there's Christian music. It's to praise, honor, worship God. I would listen to that every evening. I would be on my knees. I would be standing, arms open, just listening, quiet mind, praying under this music. And dude, God just moved. Like I was so connected to God, and the people who were flowing in to my business and my brand were just so aligned with what I was doing. It was just like confirmation after confirmation after confirmation. This is what God wants me to do. And then I came into 2025. Oh God. God is so good. I ended up meeting a girl out in Thailand. I'm not going to go through the details about it. That will come out another time. God said he was going to work in Thailand. I ended up meeting my now fiance in Thailand. I'm literally getting married May 31st, 2025. That's in like a month and a half. I met her for the first time face to face December 31st, 2024. Met her on New Year's Eve of this year. We've been engaged since March. Engaged after 2.5 months. So, needless to say, God worked in Thailand. God worked in Thailand. So I came into the new year. I came to Philly, where my incredible, God-loving, powerful woman of God is. And I just felt like she was pushing me deeper in my purpose, giving me more wisdom. And it was like, bro, you need a rest. You're trying to force everything. So I've entered this period of just changing the way I operate, because everything I've always done in my life has been, you put in a specific amount of input, you get a specific amount of output. That's how the gym is. That's how it was with school and ACE. That's pretty much how it was for me in the corporate world with getting promotions and getting new jobs. But entrepreneurship is totally different. Like you post and post and post, or you grind and grind, and you don't see necessarily, you don't always see the rewards of your labor. So I just felt like coming into this year, I was supposed to let go, stop trying to control things, and give even more surrender to God, specifically in my business. So that really brings us today, where business is great. It's incredible. I literally quit my job in October before I went out to Thailand. This is probably going to be unexpected, but I'm actually going to end up leaving the company. So I wanted to, oh, no. Yeah, I know, it's super unfortunate, but I've actually been working on an online coaching business since the summer of last year, and I've had a lot of growth, especially this year. It's been really good. So I'm actually going out to Thailand the 18th of October. So I quit. I dropped my contract with my client. I shut down my consulting business. I went full in on the coaching with like, excuse me. Sorry about that. I literally went full in my coaching business with like, I don't know, 2,000, 5,000 followers, and just full sent it all year, all end of the year. October, November, December. By the time I had gotten out to Thailand, I had dropped that gig. We cruised in Thailand. Here we are in the new year. God worked out in Thailand in my business, in my personal life, blessed me in my business, blessed me in my personal life with my wife. And here we are in 2025. We're surrendering even more control to God. What I'm doing is I'm just letting God speak more life into what I'm doing, because I know for certain, because of what's happened up until this point, when it flows, when it doesn't flow, that God wants this to be all for his glory. So he has to be the center of it. Every single thing I do. And the focus this year is just more relationship. That's why I'm making this video. I want to build more relationship with people. I want to be more authentic, more vulnerable. Because when I can do it, when I can lead from that position, it gives other people the opportunity to move into that same position. It helps us connect. It gives me a place where I can empower. And my goal, like I said in the beginning, is sure to help anyone possible, but specifically men who have been through these periods of time that I have been, through depression, through addiction, through anxiety, through stress, through confusion, through not knowing your purpose, through having no fulfillment, through hating what you're doing, through struggling with lust, to a place where they're fully aligned in their purpose, thriving physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in their relationships, in their business, living the best lifestyle they possibly could. That is my goal. And I know God will bring me to that level with the most clarity and the most impact as possible. My prayer for this year has been, Lord, expand my territory, my influence, my impact, and my opportunity. I want more influence so I can touch more lives. I want more impact so when they are on my team, the guys I already have on my team, which shout out to my team and my clients, I have the dopest team. I work with incredible men. When they are here, I can give them more value. I can bring them deeper in their purpose and more opportunity to reach more people, to give more value. That's my prayer. And I trust God's going to do it. And I'm already getting visions. God speaks to me in visions of just what's coming in the future. I'm going to be out in Hawaii, July, August with my then wife. We're going to be in Guatemala, September, October, expecting God to work. God's already planning visions about holistic health centers with the gym and the yoga studio. Yoga that's based in God, yoga that's based in Jesus, come on now. With places to meditate and pray. He's already planting the visions of that to come. First Moved is going to be built as a coaching platform. I'm going to bring in other coaches. I'm going to touch as many people as possible. Their lives. And then let's get some physical facilities going. And we'll see what God has in store. We'll see where he brings it. But that's coming to vision. I even had, who knows, I'm not guaranteeing anything. I ain't ready for it yet. I'm not even sure if it's the calling, but people talking about you could be a pastor, starting a church, and you never know. That would be dope. Here comes Moved, and then we have the physical holistic health centers. And then here comes the church. The church would probably be out in Hawaii or somewhere dope. So this is what we're doing. This is why I'm here. I'm going to try and be as real as possible. Whatever you're going through, you can make a change. There is a better version of you. That better version of you is first and foremost who God has in store for you. How do you get to that place of understanding who that person is, who you're supposed to be? You get your body right, you get your mind right, and you get your relationship with God right. Nothing will change your life more. I'm here to help you in any way. DM me on Instagram. Link is in the bio if you want to chat. Let's go, baby. Oh, Lord, thank you, Jesus. Let this touch lives. Use me. In Jesus' name, amen. And please tell me this recorded, the whole thing.